Good evening and thank you for joining us. The number of COVID-19 cases in the Thunder Bay area continues to inch up. The district health unit confirmed today that 3 more people have tested positive. There are now 21 confirmed cases in the district, but there are a number of other patients who are presumed to have the virus and are being treated at the Regional Health Sciences Center. This has led hospital officials to move into the next phase of their pandemic plan. Ryan Bonazzo explains.
The district health unit has released its latest COVID-19 numbers, announcing 3 new confirmed cases on Wednesday morning. 2 of those, a man and a woman, each in their 50s, have been hospitalized. It's still unclear how they were exposed to the virus. The 3rd case, a male under 20 years old, is self-isolating. He was exposed due to close contact with another confirmed case. There are now 3 patients being treated for COVID-19 at the Regional Health Sciences Center, according to COVID-19 lead Dr. Stuart Kennedy.
They are stable at the present time. One is in the intensive care unit more for other sort of morbidities or illnesses, more so than COVID-19, but they're being observed in ICU right now, not on any ventilator.
But there are an additional 18 patients who aren't yet confirmed, but presumed to have COVID-19. That's enough for the hospital to move to phase 2 of its pandemic plan.
We're going to have a dedicated COVID-19 unit, and that unit has capacity for 36 patients, and we're working fiercely to get that unit ready for acceptance of both our COVID-19 patients as well as our presumptive patients.
The unit should be operational in 3 to 5 days. All told, in the Thunder Bay District, 563 people have been tested for COVID-19 thus far. 450 tests have come back negative, while 95 others are still awaiting their results. 6 cases have been resolved, and there have been no local deaths linked to the virus. Testing is expected to increase across the province in the coming days, and hospital officials still hope to be able to test people in-house by the end of next week. That will allow results to come back within hours as opposed to days.
It'll change the way we're able to treat people. So if we have those presumptive cases, we can actually rule them out in 2 hours. They won't have to go to a 3A floor and be associated with other COVID-19 patients, so positive patients. So it really changed the way how we manage things at the hospital.
The hospital does still have enough protective gear for its employees, but that will likely change if cases begin to dramatically increase. Ryan Bonazzo, TBT News.
The number of cases of COVID-19 in Ontario has now passed the 5,000 mark, with 550 new cases being reported today. That includes 21 more deaths. Those numbers have prompted Premier Doug Ford to express his frustration over the low level of testing being done across the province, and he's calling for a major increase in testing starting tomorrow. Colin DeMello reports.
It's been nearly 4 months since COVID-19 surfaced in Ontario, and the province has been falling behind when it comes to testing the population for the virus.
In the country, Ontario is last for diagnostic testing per capita. We know that diagnostic testing is extremely helpful for understanding and managing the epidemic in Ontario.
In the past 3 months, Ontario has performed just 84,000 tests, a tiny percentage of the province's 14.5 million people. In fact, during the past week alone, as the death rate increased, the province has been testing fewer and fewer people each and every day. Low numbers that today touched a nerve with Premier Doug Ford.
You know, my patients have run thin, and no more excuses. It's unacceptable.
Calls to increase testing in Ontario have been coming from everywhere.
I do agree that we need to increase our laboratory testing in Canada.
The NDP believes without proper information, the province is flying blind.
How do you make the decisions? How do you allocate the resources? How do you build the necessary capacity for facilities if you don't have a good handle on where the virus is and how it's growing?
The government said at first it didn't have the assessment centers. Then it ran out of reagent, a chemical needed to process swabs. Then it had a massive backlog of tests. But with all of those issues now resolved, the government has the capacity to conduct 13,000 tests per day. And Ford says he wants the province to ramp up.
I want to see every single long-term care facility tested, every patient. I want to see the healthcare workers tested at the long-term care, along with senior residents. I want to see every frontline healthcare worker in this province tested, along with the first responders, our police, our fire, our paramedics. We owe it to them, along with other people being tested.
Frontline physicians say Ontario will now have an accurate view of how COVID-19 has been spreading.
It also helps us measure how well we're doing in Ontario in terms of, are we getting this under control or not?
Ford says no one will be disciplined for the under-testing thus far, but he does say this.
There's accountability at the end of the day. The buck stops here. I'm accountable, and I have no problem being held accountable.
Meanwhile, the NDP says the province will eventually have to thoroughly examine the government's response during the COVID-19 outbreak.
As the impact of COVID-19 continues to unfold, city officials are continuing their efforts to deal with the multitude of concerns. On tonight's installment of Mayor's Message, Bill Morrow speaks with our Barry Third about a couple of major issues that have drawn a lot of attention.
Mayor Morrow, a little bit of a departure from our usual mayor's message, but today there were a couple of specific items that you wanted to address. One was the decision to not take in evacuees should the occasion arise this spring. It was a tough decision to make, I know. These are our friends and neighbors. This is a traditional role Thunder Bay has filled. Why was that decision made?
Well, thank you, Barry. You're right. It was a very difficult decision just made last week. We advised PEOC, the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre, and the province and the federal government that at this time we were not a willing host. Our Municipal Emergency Control Group made that decision. We've communicated it out. I think most people will think this is connected to the COVID-19 virus piece. It is. But it really is a path that, quite frankly, I've been investigating for the better part of a year now. We simply, at this point, are so overwhelmed when it comes to the capacity and the ability to provide our emergency services, paramedics, police, and fire to support an evacuation of 600 to 1,000 people. We know we're stretched at this point. And when we have our Municipal Emergency Control Group meetings like we did last summer, I simply look at our paramedic chief, our fire chief, our police chief, and I say, can we manage this? And are we able to meet our response times for the people in the city of Thunder Bay? We know with guns and gangs, we know with opioids, we've been in a tough circumstance on those emergency services for a long period of time now. So we're really looking to the province to please proactively plan, get more willing host communities. Last year, we saw Ontario sending evacuees to Saskatchewan. So clearly we're not preparing well enough. We need to get better at this, and we're putting it back to the province and the feds. We saw Kapuskasing announce last week as well that they wouldn't be a willing host, and so that's the decision that we've made.
All right. Let's move to the other area of concern, and it has to do with our regional health facilities and the expected influx because of COVID-19. You're worried about being overwhelmed.
Yeah, very much so. So some time ago, I wrote a letter to most of the Northwestern Ontario mayors, or an email, simply asking them to do everything they could within their local communities, with the province, with their health authorities, with their hospitals, to do whatever they can to strengthen their local capacity. We know we're a regional hospital, but we know very quickly we could be overwhelmed. We know we can't manage a surge in numbers. Very few North American hospitals can. So I was simply reaching out to them, please do whatever it is you can, and I know it's difficult. Work with the province as I have. I've reached out to Minister Elliott's office. Please do what you can to support regional capacity in Northwestern Ontario so that they're better able to manage in their communities where people want to stay, because if they can't manage it, we know that challenge comes to Thunder Bay, and it would not be long before we were unable to meet the needs of the community and the region.
At this juncture, we have in the neighborhood of 20 confirmed cases in the Thunder Bay area. How concerned are you over the long haul for our ability to cope?
Well, we knew we were going to have numbers, and that's why the ability for all of us to take on our individual responsibility and contain community spread. That's where we're at right now. That's our tool. There's no vaccine. That's all we have to control the spread. So if it starts to take hold, if it starts to spread, I think we've got about 150 beds at this point at the hospital, maybe more. Won't take long to overwhelm those, especially if the region is unable to cope as well.
And let's hope people keep following the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all we can count on.
Thank you, Mayor Morrow.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
Gas bars on the Fort William First Nation are reacting to the Band Council's decision to close all retail businesses for 2 weeks to combat COVID-19. Starting Friday night, community checkpoints will be in place 24 hours a day, and most stations are planning to abide by the orders. But one business owner located just outside the barricades says they're considering staying open. Corey Nordstrom has more.
Anybody trespassing on the lands of Fort William First Nation without the authority of Chief and Council will be dealt with accordingly by law.
Starting this Friday, Fort William First Nation will move their current security checkpoints and barricades to Chippewa Road and Mountain Road and on the reserve side of the James Street Swing Bridge for 2 weeks. All retail businesses, like gas bars, must be closed during that time, but it's a unique situation for First Class Gas and Pelche's Auto Body because of where they're located.
In my opinion, we pose no risk to the community. We're on the outer boundary of the community. Our next door neighbor is the city of Thunder Bay, and we are outside the barricaded area.
First Class Gas is on Fort William First Nation land. That will be taken. All vendors of gas suppliers will be closed up Friday at 6 p.m.
I haven't received any communication from council. I haven't seen anything come out in the way of a document stating what they'd like me to do. So at this point, it's business as usual.
The Friday deadline caused long lineups of cars along City Road, most of it being people heading to gas stations. That forced the Anishinaabe police to come in and help direct traffic. Walter Bannon is a co-owner of Bannon's Gas Bar. He says it's unfortunate this closure is happening in what is usually their busiest months of the year.
This period could represent mid six figures for us in terms of sales. I honor the political system and what they put in place. There's nothing we can do about that.
An owner of THP Gas Bar agrees with Bannon, saying they know this is necessary to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. K&A Gas Bar co-owner Bill McLaren is upset that the gas bars are being told to close, while the grain elevators along Darrell Avenue and the Resolute Sawmill are allowed to stay open. Collins says those employees must go straight to their workplaces.
They've been given strict policies of access into the community. If they sway from that, then their access into the community will be denied.
Collins says they may come to a point where they don't allow traffic to the sawmill or elevators in the near future, and they also plan on reevaluating these measures near the end of the 14-day period. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
Many of the grocery stores in Thunder Bay are becoming overwhelmed with requests for pickup and delivery services as customers are trying to avoid shopping in person due to COVID-19. The waiting list for those types of services is getting longer and longer, and some grocers now have lineups outside their doors. Cole Promain explains.
With the long weekend just a few days away, local grocery stores are seeing a big increase in home delivery requests, outdoor pickups, and lineups outside. The Maltese store just off Algoma has fewer staff after offering employees the option to stay home during the pandemic, and they had to put a temporary halt to grocery deliveries Tuesday night after being swamped with requests. West Fort Foods, meanwhile, have also seen a large increase in demand for deliveries, but store manager Earl Wickland says they are doing all they can to keep up with the requests so they do not have to delay service.
Well, there's some vulnerable people out there. Some of our elderly are normal long-term customers that need the service. We could never do that. We want to keep it going as best we can. And that's really what it's all about. We run our vans 5 days a week. We do both sides of the city. We're doing currently over 100 orders a day almost with the increased demand, which is actually up about anywhere from 33 to 50% of our normal capacity.
Renco Family Foods at Centennial Square has been focusing on foot traffic rather than deliveries. Store manager Donnie Litvak says they're still welcoming customers to call in delivery orders or come on in, as long as they take proper precautions.
With the delivery service, yes and no. I mean, it's up to the individual, but maybe it's nice also to don a mask and come on in and, you know, get a friendly smile or get some fast conversation just to get out of the house.
Larger chains continue to experience a massive demand. Places like the Real Canadian Superstore continues to see long lineups outside due to limits on the number of customers allowed inside to shop. Superstore's website had been offering scheduled hourly pickups outside from 7 in the morning until 11 at night. However, the time slots are entirely booked up for the next 2 weeks. Cole Permain, TBT News.
Ontario has passed an emergency order to allow legal pot shops to offer delivery and curbside pickup after the businesses did not qualify as an essential service. Those services can take place 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. The 30-gram maximum per transaction remains in effect. The move is aimed to limit reliance on the illegal market and will be in effect for at least 14 days with the possibility of an extension. The mayor of Kenora is calling for the border between Manitoba and Ontario to be shut down. Other politicians have been asking Winnipeg residents not to visit their cottages on Lake of the Woods, but Dan Reynard wants things to be taken one step further.
The ask of the province is to close the Ontario-Manitoba border to all residential travel, either leaving the province or coming back in, recognizing that, we still need our transportation to be moving so that the goods and services can be moved across the country.
Right now, checkpoints are set up on the Manitoba side of the border, and anybody entering is being advised to self-isolate for 14 days. Staff are stopping every vehicle and passing along information about public health orders. Currently, no one is being denied entry, and people are able to leave Manitoba, but are expected to self-isolate when they return home. Reynard says he wants to stop all non-essential travel into Ontario for the sake of Kenora's healthcare system.
We welcome you back once this is all over. You're a huge part of our community. But right now, we need our Manitoba residents and summer residents to stay home. You cannot come into Kenora. It just puts too much pressure on our healthcare system. It increases the odds of bringing the virus into our community.
Reynard says he's been communicating with Ford Government Minister Greg Rickford, who was involved in province-to-province negotiations with Manitoba. A major repair of the Boulevard Lake Dam will go ahead as planned this spring, provided there aren't any further changes to the province's list of essential workplaces. The $8.5 million project will see a 2-year closure of the walkway over the dam, with water levels on the lake lowered significantly this summer. On Friday, the province ordered a halt to construction on some large projects due to the pandemic, but according to the fine print on that list, dams are considered critical infrastructure, so the repair project can continue. Concrete Walls is the company doing the work. They've assured the city they already have a plan in place regarding COVID-19. The company will start laying down equipment in May, with construction beginning in late June. City Councillor Andrew Folds is hoping the long-awaited project stays on course, but he knows how quickly the rules can change.
Construction of such a huge project often has challenges as well in terms of timelines. We've got this whole situation with the coronavirus that may change timelines. So the short answer is I'm hopeful that 2 years, and like I said, things can change. And my first priority is the health and wellness of people.
Today, the Ford government announced extended construction hours for projects that are deemed essential. Work will be permitted 24 hours a day to give worksite managers more flexibility with the number of people working at one time. The District Social Services Board has received its first installment of the Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative from the province, and they've announced a list of successful applicants to receive financial aid through the program. The CHPI Food Security Fund totals over $350,000, and it will be spread across 11 organizations around the district. Applicants were rated on a point-based system to decide how the funds would be allocated. Some of the recipients include the Salvation Army Food Bank, which will receive $27,000 for food hamper distribution, and the Shelter House will receive close to $125,000 to expand capacity and provide meals to the homeless. DSAB CAO Bill Bradica says in addition to the homelessness fund, they're expecting more money from the government due to COVID-19.
So this, we're expecting that this will be an annual item. So we're in the process of getting the checks out to these organizations. Further to this, we will be receiving an allocation specific to the COVID emergency from the province of Ontario. It's sort of part of the CHIPPY program, but it's called the Social Services Relief Fund. So we will be receiving that funding shortly.
Bradicka says they expect those funds to be upwards of $1 million, and they expect to see an announcement made by the end of the week.
Well, Fiona, I gotta say, for parts of today, even though we're heading towards the spring season, it felt